In the vast, golden expanse of the desert, long before the first great pyramids reached for the heavens, a different kind of monument was being built. It was not a structure of stone or mortar, but an idea, a whispered truth passed down through generations. Before the pharaohs adorned themselves with crowns of intricate gold and lapis lazuli, the people of the land they called Kemet, the Black Land, spoke of a presence that was both everywhere and nowhere at once. They spoke of a power that existed before the world had a shape, before time itself had begun its inexorable march forward. This was a faith born not in grand temples, but in the quiet awe of a sunrise and the silent mystery of a star-filled night. They gave this presence a name, Amun. In their ancient tongue, the name meant the hidden one. It was a recognition that the ultimate source of all life could not be captured in a single image or confined to a single story. Amun was the unseen force, the silent breath that animated the universe. He was the divine mystery that existed before the first ray of light broke across the primordial waters, while later civilizations would come to see a pantheon of gods, with animal heads, and human forms. The earliest spiritual consciousness of Egypt was rooted in something far more profound and abstract. It was an understanding of a single, all-encompassing being. The early people of the Nile Valley felt this hidden god in the gentle breeze that rustled the reeds along the riverbank. They sensed his power in the life-giving flood that nourished their soil and in the unyielding heat of the midday sun. Their faith was not defined by elaborate rituals or complex doctrines, but by a direct and personal connection to the natural world around them. They believed that while the Creator was invisible, his handiwork was on display in every living thing, from the smallest insect to the mightiest crocodile. This was a theology of immanence, the belief that divinity permeated every part of creation, forever present, yet forever concealed from mortal eyes. This concept of a hidden god formed the very bedrock of Egyptian spirituality for millennia. It was a sophisticated and deeply philosophical idea that often gets lost in modern interpretations of their complex mythology. The story of Amun is not just the story of one deity among many, it is the story of humanity's earliest attempt to grapple with the concept of a singular, transcendent creator. It is a journey back in time, to the very dawn of religious thought, where the people of an ancient African civilization whispered the name of a god unseen, a god who was the hidden heart of all that was, is, and ever would be. The name Amun was more than just a label for a deity. It was a profound spiritual statement. It was an acknowledgement of the ultimate mystery that lies at the heart of existence. The priests and sages of Kemet described him in poetic and paradoxical terms, trying to capture the essence of something that was, by its very nature, beyond full comprehension. They would say, "He who cannot be seen with the eyes, but whose presence fills all things." This was not a god who sat on a distant throne, detached from his creation. Instead, Amun was understood as the very fabric of reality, the invisible spirit that wove together the sun, the stars, the earth, and the waters of the Nile. To the people of Kemet, Amun was the primordial source from which all life emerged. He was the divine breath within the wind, the silent thought that preceded the spoken word of creation. When the priests offered their prayers in the hallowed halls of their temples, their incantations spoke of this fundamental hiddenness. They would chant, "No one knows his true form, for he hides himself from men. He is the hidden one in heaven, the unseen Lord of truth." This was not a statement of absence, but a declaration of a presence so immense and all-encompassing that it could not be limited to a physical body or a defined shape. This understanding shaped the entire Egyptian worldview. They saw the universe not as a random collection of events, but as a deliberate and ordered cosmos, brought into being by a single intelligent consciousness. The cyclical flooding of the Nile, the predictable journey of the sun across the sky, and the eternal return of the seasons were all seen as manifestations of Amun's divine will. He was the architect of reality, the master craftsman who had fashioned the world from the chaos of the primordial waters, known as Nun. In their creation myths, it was the spirit of Amun that first moved upon these waters, bringing forth light, life, and order. This belief in an unseen singular creator is a crucial piece of the puzzle that is often overlooked when we study ancient Egypt. The popular image of a culture that worshipped a vast and bewildering array of gods, from the falcon-headed Horus to the jackal-headed Anubis, is an incomplete picture. For the wise of Kemet, these various deities were not rivals to the one creator. Instead, they were understood as aspects, attributes, or manifestations of the one hidden god, Amun. They were the faces of a single truth, the many ways in which an unknowable and invisible power chose to reveal itself to the world of mortals. In the spiritual heart of Kemet, nestled between the life-giving Nile and the eternal sands, the name Amun was a sacred mystery. It was a concept that transcended the simple definition of a god. For the ancient Egyptians, Amun was the very essence of existence, the invisible force that animated the cosmos. The priests, in their deep contemplation, did not seek to define him with rigid certainty, but rather to honor his unknowable nature. They spoke of him as the breath that one cannot see but cannot live without. This divine breath was not merely air, it was the vital spirit, the Ka, that flowed through every living creature, from the mighty pharaoh to the humble papyrus reed swaying in the breeze. This belief in an unseen, all-pervading spirit shaped the daily lives of the people. When a child was born, their first cry was seen as a gift from Amun, the moment his hidden breath entered a new vessel. When the desert winds swept across the plains, they were not just currents of air but whispers of Amun's presence, a reminder of the power that moved all things. This was a theology of profound intimacy. The divine was not confined to stone temples or golden shrines. It was present in the rhythm of one's own heartbeat, in the warmth of the sun on one's skin, and in the cool water drawn from the Nile. To breathe was to participate in the divine life of Amun. The most ancient texts and hymns addressed to Amun emphasize this quality of invisibility and omnipresence. One prayer eloquently states, "O Amun, you who are hidden from the gods, whose true form is unknown. You are farther than the sky. You are deeper than the underworld." This was not a god who could be summoned or commanded. Instead, he was a presence to be acknowledged and revered in every aspect of life. The people of Kemet understood that the ultimate power of the universe was, by its very nature, beyond the grasp of human senses. His hiddenness was not a sign of distance or indifference, but a testament to his infinite and all-encompassing reality. Therefore, the faith of early Kemet was not one of blind worship, but of deep, intuitive knowing. It was a spiritual awareness cultivated through observation of the natural world and introspection into the nature of life itself. The priests taught that while no one could look upon the face of Amun, everyone could witness his works. The orderly procession of the stars, the miraculous germination of a seed in the dark earth, and the unwavering loyalty of the Nile's annual flood were all seen as fingerprints left by the unseen creator. Amun was the silent artist whose masterpiece was the entirety of creation, a work of art that revealed the artist's genius without ever showing his face. Amun was not only the source of life but also the silent weaver of destiny, the cosmic intelligence that maintained the universal order, which the Egyptians called Ma'at. This concept of Ma'at, representing truth, balance, order, and justice, was the ethical and spiritual foundation of their civilization. It was believed that Amun had established Ma'at at the moment of creation, and it was the duty of every individual, from the pharaoh down to the farmer, to live in accordance with it. The universe was not a chaotic stage for random events, it was a finely tuned instrument, and Amun was the unseen musician ensuring its harmonious melody continued to play across eternity. The pharaoh, as the earthly representative of divine order, had a unique relationship with Amun. He was not just a king, he was the chief steward of Ma'at, tasked with ensuring that the nation lived in balance and righteousness. When a pharaoh made a decision, it was believed that he was channeling the hidden will of Amun. The prosperity of the kingdom, the success of harvests, and victory in battle were all seen as indicators of how well the pharaoh and the people were aligned with the divine plan set forth by the hidden god. To act against Ma'at was to create dissonance in the cosmic harmony, inviting chaos and misfortune upon the land. This divine order extended beyond the realm of the living. The Egyptians had a complex and sophisticated understanding of the afterlife, and Amun played a central, though often subtle, role. As the ultimate source of all souls, it was to his essence that the righteous spirit hoped to return. While other deities like Osiris presided over the judgment of the dead, it was understood that this entire process operated under the grand, overarching design of Amun. He was the final destination, the great ocean of consciousness into which the individual river of a soul would eventually flow, rejoining the hidden source from which it first emerged. In this way, the people of Kemet saw their lives as part of a grand, divinely woven tapestry. Every action, every choice, and every word was a thread that contributed to the larger pattern. They believed that Amun, the hidden weaver, saw the entire design, even if they could only perceive their own small section of the cloth. This gave their existence a profound sense of purpose and responsibility. Life was not a meaningless journey, but a sacred duty to uphold the balance and truth established by the unseen creator, ensuring that the beautiful and orderly world he had fashioned would endure forever. The very name Amun, the Hidden One, was, a kind of theological safeguard against the limitations of idolatry. While the temples of Kemet were filled with magnificent statues and intricate carvings of various deities, the wisest priests understood that these were really just symbols, not literal representations of the divine. They were created for the human mind, which, honestly, struggles to comprehend the purely abstract. A statue of a god with a falcon's head was not the god himself, but a focal point for contemplating a specific divine attribute, like vision or power. But Amun, however, was fundamentally different. He was the god who, by his very essence, could not and really should not be fully depicted. This created a unique paradox in Egyptian religious practice. Even as the cult of Amun grew in power and influence, especially in the great city of Thebes, his true nature remained shrouded in mystery. The grandest temples built in his honor contained an inner sanctum, a holy of holies, where his presence was believed to dwell. Yet even the image kept within this sacred space was understood to be just a symbol, a stand-in for a reality that was formless and infinite. The priests would perform rituals to a statue of Amun, but their prayers were directed beyond the stone and gold, reaching toward the boundless, invisible spirit that it represented. This abstract conception of the divine is, honestly, one of the most sophisticated spiritual achievements of the ancient world. In an age when neighboring cultures often equated their gods with the idols they worshipped, the theologians of Kemet maintained a clear distinction between the symbol and the reality. They taught that Amun was self-created, having come into being from his own thought, without a mother or a father. This set him apart from all other beings, both divine and mortal. He was the uncaused cause, the prime mover who existed before anything else, and therefore could not be defined by any part of the creation that came after him. Ultimately, the hiddenness of Amun was a profound statement about the nature of God and the limits of human understanding. It was a recognition that the ultimate reality is always greater than our ideas about it. The people of Kemet did not see this as a frustration, but as a source of endless awe and reverence. The divine was a mystery to be explored, a presence to be felt, and a truth to be lived, but never a problem to be solved or an object to be possessed. Amun was the eternal horizon of their spiritual quest, always visible in its effects, but forever beyond their ultimate reach, a hidden god who invited not comprehension, but wonder. As Egyptian civilization evolved, so too did its understanding of the divine. The profound, abstract concept of Amun, the hidden and formless creator, began to merge with another powerful force in the Egyptian pantheon, Ra, the god of the sun. Ra was everything Amun was not. He was visible, tangible, and his power was felt daily across the land of Kemet. He was the golden disk that sailed across the sky, bringing light, warmth, and life to the world. His journey was predictable, a symbol of unwavering order and eternal renewal. For the people of the Nile, the sun was the most potent and undeniable manifestation of divine power in their physical world. The synthesis of these two mighty deities into a single entity, Amun-Ra, was a theological masterstroke. It was not a replacement of one god by another, but a profound philosophical statement about the nature of divinity itself. Amun remained the hidden one, the unseen source of all creation, the mystery beyond human comprehension. Ra, in this new union, became the physical expression of Amun's power, his visible glory shining down upon the world. Amun was the hidden soul, Ra was the radiant body. Together they represented the complete picture of the divine, the unknowable cause and the observable effect, the spirit and its manifestation. This union likely began in Thebes, which rose to prominence as the capital of Egypt during the New Kingdom. As the patron god of Thebes, Amun's stature grew alongside the city's political power. The priests sought to elevate him to the status of a supreme, national god. By merging him with the long-revered and universally acknowledged sun, god Ra, they created a deity of unparalleled scope and influence. Amun-Ra was not just the hidden creator or the visible sun, he was the king of the gods, the lord of all, whose authority was both spiritual and temporal, unseen in the heavens and seen in the light that sustained the empire. The people of Kemet embraced this new composite deity with fervor. Amun-Ra resolved the paradox of a god who was both remote and intimate, both transcendent and immanent. When they looked upon the rising sun, they were no longer just seeing a celestial body. They were witnessing the daily arrival of the hidden god's glory. The light that warmed their faces was a direct touch from the Creator. The priests would chant hymns that celebrated this dual nature, saying, "Hail to thee, Amun-Ra, Lord of the thrones of the two lands, whose rays give life to all. You are the hidden one, yet your radiance is seen by all." The concept of Amun-Ra was a sophisticated way for the Egyptians to articulate a deep spiritual truth, that although the ultimate source of divinity is unseen, its works are visible everywhere. This was not about worshipping the sun itself, a common misconception. For the ancient theologians of Kemet, the physical sun was merely a vessel, a magnificent lens through which the invisible power of Amun could be perceived by mortal eyes. They understood that the power that made the sun shine was infinitely greater than the sphere of fire they saw in the sky. The sun was a symbol, a pointer to a greater hidden reality. This duality became central to their faith. It allowed them to hold two seemingly contradictory ideas in perfect balance: the belief in a single formless, unknowable creator and the practice of worshipping that creator through tangible, visible forms. The Egyptians looked at the rising sun and said, "He comes in glory, but his true self is beyond the sky." They saw the light giving life to the crops in their fields, and understood it as Amun's hidden breath made manifest. This perspective prevented their faith from becoming a simple nature worship. Nature was not God, but it was a sacred canvas upon which God's glory was painted each and every day. The hymns and prayers from this period beautifully capture this mystery. They speak to Amun-Ra as a single being with two faces. One face is hidden in eternal darkness before creation, and the other is revealed in the brilliant light of noon. This theology provided a framework for understanding existence itself. Everything had a visible form and an invisible essence, a body and a soul, or Kai. The physical world was a reflection of a deeper, spiritual world. The role of humanity was to perceive the invisible through the visible, to look at the works of the Creator and feel the presence of the Creator himself. Ultimately, the union of Amun and Ra was a statement about revelation. It taught that the hidden God does not remain entirely remote, but chooses to reveal himself through his creation. The light of Ra was a continuous daily act of divine communication. It was a promise that even in a world of mystery, where the ultimate truth is veiled, there is still light, warmth, and guidance. The Egyptians understood that faith was a journey of seeing beyond the surface, of recognizing that the most powerful forces are often the ones that cannot be seen, and that the most brilliant light often comes from a source that remains forever in the dark. As the centuries passed and Egypt's influence spread, its rich spiritual landscape began to be viewed through the eyes of outsiders. Travelers, traders, and conquerors from lands like Greece and Rome encountered a civilization teeming with a dazzling and often bewildering array of deities. They saw grand temples dedicated to the falcon-headed Horus, the maternal Isis, and the regal Osiris, the lord of the underworld. They witnessed elaborate festivals and complex rituals performed in their honor. Observing this vast pantheon, they drew what seemed to be the most logical conclusion: that the Egyptians were a polytheistic people who worshipped a multitude of competing gods. This interpretation, however, was a profound misunderstanding of a far more nuanced spiritual reality. For the priests and wise sages of Kemet, this collection of gods was not a chaotic assembly of separate and rival powers. Instead, they were understood as faces of the same singular, ultimate truth. They were the many masks worn by the one hidden god, Amun, as he interacted with his creation. Each deity represented a specific attribute, function, or aspect of the one divine source. They were not rivals to the Creator, they were reflections of his infinite mystery, each one illuminating a different facet of his being. This allowed the human mind to connect with divine qualities in a way that the purely abstract concept of the Hidden One could not facilitate alone. Think of it as looking at a single brilliant diamond. Each facet catches the light and reflects it in a unique way, showing a different sparkle of color and brilliance. Yet, all these individual flashes of light emanate from the same single stone. For the Egyptians, Horus was the facet of divine protection and righteous kingship, his piercing falcon eyes symbolizing divine sight and vigilance. Isis represented the nurturing, life-giving and compassionate spirit of creation, the divine mother who mourns and resurrects. Osiris embodied the principles of order, death, and the promise of eternal resurrection, the assurance that life would triumph over chaos and decay. These were not separate gods but divine energies of the One. This sophisticated theological system allowed the people of Kemet to have a personal and relatable connection to the divine, without sacrificing the core belief in a single, ultimate creator. A soldier facing battle might pray to Horus for protection, while a grieving widow might seek comfort from Isis. In doing so, they were not turning away from Amun, the Hidden One, but rather focusing their prayers on the specific divine attribute most relevant to their immediate need. The pantheon was a rich vocabulary for speaking about and to God, a way of breaking down an infinite and unknowable reality into comprehensible and accessible parts. The outsiders saw many gods, the insiders knew they were all just names for the One. Over time, especially after the decline of the pharaonic age and the loss of the priestly traditions, this deep theological understanding began to fade. The intricate stories and relationships between the gods, which were once understood as allegories for cosmic processes and divine attributes, were stripped of their deeper meaning. What was once profound theology, a complex system for understanding the one hidden God, was gradually flattened into what the later world would call mythology. The stories of Isis searching for the scattered body of Osiris, or Horus battling his uncle Set, became seen as mere fables, entertaining tales of supernatural beings, rather than sacred narratives about the nature of creation and order. This transformation was cemented by foreign historians and writers who lacked the cultural and spiritual context to interpret the symbols correctly. They recorded the stories but missed the soul behind them. The sacred language of faith, which used earthly symbols to point toward heavenly truths, was taken literally. The divine principles became personified characters, and the cosmic drama of creation became a family squabble among the gods. The central, unifying concept of Amun, the hidden source behind all these forms, was either forgotten or relegated to the status of just another deity in the crowded pantheon, stripping him of his supreme, all-encompassing role. The wise of Kemet would have been saddened by this reduction. For them, these stories were the earliest language of faith in the one unseen God. They were not meant to be historical records or literal biographies of deities. They were teaching tools, spiritual maps designed to guide the soul through the mysteries of life, death, and the cosmos. The narrative of Osiris's death and rebirth was not just a story, it was a promise of resurrection for every human soul, and a reflection of the agricultural cycle of death and renewal that they witnessed each year along the Nile. It was a tangible expression of Amun's power to bring life from death. Thus, the faith that began with the whisper of a single hidden god ended up being remembered by the world as a chaotic jumble of animal-headed idols. The profound monotheistic core of Kemetic spirituality was veiled by the very symbols that were meant to reveal it. The faces of the divine, intended to make the Hidden One more accessible, ironically ended up obscuring him from view for millennia. What the world came to dismiss as primitive myth was, in its origin, one of humanity's most sophisticated and enduring attempts to speak about the unspeakable, the one source of all being, the hidden god they called Amun. When we delve into the most ancient spiritual texts of Kemet, a startling and profound realization begins to dawn. The core concepts of creation, divinity, and the nature of existence, long held sacred in the scriptures of later Abrahamic faiths, find powerful and ancient echoes in the papyrus scrolls of the Nile Valley. These are not coincidences or borrowed ideas, but rather a testament to a shared stream of divine revelation, a universal truth expressing itself through different cultures and languages. Long before the book of Genesis was written, the people of Kemet were grappling with the same fundamental mysteries of origin, and their answers resonate with a familiar, sacred cadence across the millennia, suggesting a common source of inspiration. Consider the opening verses of the Hebrew Bible, where the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. This powerful image of a divine presence bringing order to a formless, watery chaos is one of the most foundational concepts in Judeo-Christian thought. Yet thousands of years earlier, the priests of Kemet described the very beginning of creation in almost identical terms. They spoke of a time before time when only the primordial chaotic waters of Nun existed. It was upon these dark, lifeless waters that the spirit of Amun, the Hidden One, first moved. He was described as the divine breath that gave life and consciousness to the waters, initiating the process of creation and pushing back the chaos to establish order. This parallel is not merely superficial, it speaks to a shared understanding of God's relationship with the primordial state of the universe. In both traditions, creation is not an act of making something from absolute nothingness, but rather an act of bringing order, light, and life to a pre-existing, formless state. Amun, like the Spirit of God, is the active, intelligent force that initiates this transformation. He is the divine consciousness that precedes all physical matter, the unseen power that stirs the silent abyss and awakens the cosmos. This shared vision of a divine spirit hovering over primordial waters suggests a deep, ancient intuition about the origins of all things. The similarities extend further, into the very nature of the Creator himself. The scriptures often describe God as a being who cannot be seen, whose true form is beyond human comprehension. In the book of Exodus, God tells Moses, "You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live." This concept of a transcendent, invisible God is the absolute cornerstone of Kemetic theology concerning Amun. As we have seen, his very name means the Hidden One, and the hymns repeatedly praise him as the one whose true form is unknown and who hides himself from men. Different tongues, different lands, yet the same profound revelation. The ultimate creator is a spirit, unseen and unknowable in his full essence. The Gospel of John declares, "In the beginning was the Word," highlighting creation through divine speech. This concept, the Logos, mirrors ancient Egyptian beliefs found in the Memphite theology, where Ta creates by thought and spoken word. Creation, in both traditions, begins with a divine idea, then manifests through speech. The Egyptians said, "By his thought, all things came into being. By his word, creation was spoken." Both traditions see consciousness and speech as the universe's true creative forces. Words, names, and incantations held power in Egypt because they echoed the original act of creation. The universe was not built, but spoken into existence. These parallels enrich our understanding of humanity's search for the divine. The message, whether in temples or scriptures, points to a single, unseen source whose creative voice echoes through all creation. The power of the spoken word remains a sacred thread connecting faiths across time. Before Egypt's grand temples, a simple faith thrived along the Nile. Early Kemetic spirituality was direct and woven into daily life, with nature as both temple and altar. The Nile's flood and the sun's warmth were seen as divine gifts, not just natural events. The people sensed the hidden spirit, later called Amun, in every breath and every harvest. Their worship was gratitude in action, raising hands at sunrise, offering first fruits to the river. They believed the Creator's essence was too vast for statues, so their faith was lived, not built. This was the genesis of Egyptian spirituality, a personal connection to the mystery of life. Amun, the Hidden One, was felt in the world's rhythms long before he had a name. The world itself was their sacred space, alive with the presence of an unseen creator. For early Nile dwellers, every act was sacred, life itself was worship. Planting, drawing water, and daily chores were seen as cooperation with the divine. An Egyptian proverb said, "Man lives when he breathes the air of Amun, making each breath a communion with the Creator." All life was revered as a vessel of the sacred breath. Worship wasn't confined to temples. It was a continuous state of gratitude and awareness. The fisherman, the farmer, the builder, all lived in harmony with the hidden spirit. This practical spirituality was the foundation for Egypt's later grandeur. Temples and myths built upon these core truths, not apart from them. To live gratefully and in tune with nature was the truest worship of the hidden God. The revelation of a single hidden creator was shared across Africa, not just in Egypt. From Kenya's Ngai to Nigeria's Olodumare, diverse peoples named the same supreme being. The Maasai, Yoruba, Zulu, and others all recognized a creator too vast for any one name. This Pan-African spiritual consciousness shows Egypt's faith was part of a larger heritage. The names changed: Ngai, Enkai, Nyasaye, Katanda, Unkalunkalu, but the belief endured. Amun, the Hidden One, was Egypt's unique expression of this widespread truth. African religions were never just animism, they honored a supreme creator above all. Spirits and ancestors were seen as intermediaries, not gods themselves. Africa knew the one God long before outside influences arrived. Africa's faith in one creator predates temples and scriptures. This truth was written in the land, the seasons, and the human heart. The Spirit of God was felt in sun, thunder, and harvest. Spirituality was life itself. The same unseen power guiding the stars was believed to dwell within every person. This fostered a deep reverence for all existence, seeing the world as a sacred whole. Egypt's story of Amun is just one grand expression of this ancient faith. Other African peoples, Luo, Baganda, and more, shared the same spiritual DNA. This faith needed no complex theology, only an open heart and attentive spirit. The god of Amun was an African god, one face of the great hidden creator known across the continent. As our journey through the sands of time comes to a close, we are left standing before the profound legacy of Amun, the Hidden One. When we look back at the spiritual landscape of ancient Kemet, we no longer see a confusing pantheon of superstitious beliefs, but a sophisticated and deeply moving revelation of the divine. The story of Amun is the story of humanity's primordial quest to understand the unseen creator, a god so vast and mysterious that he could only be known by the name Hidden. This was not a confession of ignorance, but a declaration of awe. It was Africa's first and most enduring testament to a single supreme being who existed before time, before light, and before all known things, a spirit whose presence filled everything. The concept of the hidden God, who reveals his glory through the light of the sun as Amun-Ra, and whose attributes are reflected in the many faces of the divine, is a spiritual masterpiece. It is a theology that balances the transcendent with the immanent, the unknowable with the intimately felt. It is the same eternal truth that echoes in scriptures across the world, that the Creator, though unseen, is not distant. As the Apostle Paul would later say in Athens, a city that once marveled at Egypt's gods, he is not far from any one of us. The people of the Nile knew this in their bones. They felt him in their breath, saw him in the flooding of their river, and knew his law in the unwavering order of the cosmos. This was Africa's forgotten revelation, a spiritual inheritance that links the faith of the pharaohs to the broader continent's understanding of one God known by many names. The God of Amun is the same God who said, "Be still and know that I am God." He is the same spirit who walked with the first humans in a garden, who spoke to the patriarchs under desert stars, and who still whispers in the winds that sweep across the African plains today. The great temples may now be silent ruins, and the ancient tongue may be lost to all but a few, but the voice of the Hidden One has never fallen silent. It continues to call from the heart of the Nile, a timeless invitation to find the unseen God who was never, ever absent. The legacy of Amun reminds us that faith is not about having all the answers, but about living in reverence of the great mystery. It teaches us that the divine is often found not in the noise of dogma, but in the stillness of creation. The ancient people of Kemet, in their profound wisdom, understood that the ultimate truth was a hidden one, a presence to be experienced rather than explained. Their journey of faith, etched in stone and whispered in hymns, is a timeless guide for all who seek the unseen. For the god they called Amun, the hidden one, is a universal truth, a spiritual horizon that calls to every soul in every age to look beyond the visible and connect with the eternal source of all life, a sacred duty to uphold the balance and truth established by the unseen creator. As the echoes of ancient prayers fade into the present, the story of the hidden one does not end. It transforms. The sands may have shifted, empires may have risen and fallen, but the longing to touch the eternal remains woven into the soul of every generation. Across Africa and beyond, the wisdom of the ancients still whispers, "Seek, and you shall find." The temples by the Nile may now rest beneath the stars, but their stones are not silent. They speak to us of a faith that transcends time, a faith that honors both the visible and the invisible, the known and the mysterious. Today, each act of kindness, each moment of wonder, becomes a small temple, a place where the hidden God is revealed in the lives we live and the love we share. So, as you walk your own path, remember, the legacy of Amun is not locked away in history. It lives on in every heart that yearns for truth, in every soul that finds hope in the unseen. This is your story now, an invitation to carry forward the light, to seek the mystery, and to let the song of the hidden one echo through your life. May you find him in the quiet moments, in the laughter of friends, and in the beauty of the world around you. And may the journey never end, as long as there are those who dare to seek the face of the unseen creator.